Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us for 12 News at 4. I'm Tram Mai. Right now, former President Donald Trump and Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance are campaigning in Glendale. The rally taking place at Desert Diamond Arena. This video just into our newsroom of Trump landing at Phoenix Sky Harbor just after 2:30 this afternoon. The event in Glendale comes a day after Trump visited the southern border in Cochise County. And right now, we want to go live to our very own Troy Hayden, who's at the arena. And Troy, Trump is expected to take the stage really any minute now. What's happening there?
Well, I'll tell you this, the Democrats had their big week in Chicago all week, but the Republicans are getting a big day in Arizona today. RFK Jr., we'll have more on this coming up, drops out of the race and endorses Donald Trump. And right now, we are at a packed rally at Desert Diamond Arena. So Kari Lake, Senate candidate, on the stage right now speaking. But remember, Kamala Harris out here, they had about 15,000 people at Desert Diamond. We're going to pan around. And it looks like the Trump campaign has filled up this arena as well. The lower bowl totally full, upper deck totally full. Donald Trump should be speaking in maybe 5-10 minutes. We'll see when that happens. But again, Kari Lake on stage right now. Had a chance to talk with her just a few minutes before she went on stage.
When I moved here, when you moved here, this used to be an affordable state. It's quickly becoming unaffordable. And a young generation, my kids tell me, and I'm not sure if yours do, they say, Mom, even if I worked every waking hour, I wouldn't be able to afford a down payment on a house. I moved here a lot of years ago. I bought a house for $88,000. With a small down payment, my house payment was $680,000. Our children are trying to grasp the American dream, and it's out of reach, and I don't want that for our kids.
So again, Kari Lake speaking right now. It's about halfway through her remarks. Now, I talked about this place being packed, and it is. Getting in here was not easy. There were lines all the way around the building in these temperatures and this humidity. Sean Rice joins us. Sean, I took some video earlier today. I saw an elderly gentleman collapsed. I know the heat was a very big deal for a lot of these people.
Yeah, Troy, absolutely. Glendale police told us before this event even started, they expected upwards of 15,000 people to try to enter the arena today for Trump's rally. We spent much of the afternoon walking up and down those very lengthy lines, speaking to folks. Some people had been here since the early morning hours, and after multiple hours of standing in those lines, had yet to make their way into the arena. The heat certainly taking a toll on many of these folks, and some we spoke with said they were experiencing heat exhaustion, and we shot one video earlier today, here it is on your screen, of Glendale Fire treating one person, carting her off on a stretcher, and then placing her in the back of an ambulance, giving her both water and a cold towel. We saw multiple instances of this in just the 30 minutes we spent walking up and down the lines talking to folks here. The line to get in stretched all the way around the Arizona Cardinals Stadium, and all things considered, the crowd was very lively. Some women we spoke with explained why they came out today to brave this heat.
His policies are the ones that are important. It's not about the man, it's about his policies. That's what it is, you know, the borders, abortion, and all that stuff that's going on.
This is actually a peaceful party, you know, so this is great that we can have this many people without going crazy and losing their minds.
No,
yeah.
We're not burning cities down.
We're helping each other, passing waters, you know, ice to each other, looking out for each other.
That water, of course, vitally important on a day where the lines were moving very slowly and shade, of course, very hard to come by. A delightful moment for the crowd was seeing Kari Lake drive by as she made her way today, just a few hours ago, into Desert Diamond Arena. Donald Trump, of course, just minutes away from taking stage inside Desert Diamond Arena. We do want to point out, we haven't seen any sort of counter-protesters making their way up and down the streets here in Glendale. And as you just heard from a Trump supporter a moment ago, so far this gathering has been nothing but a peaceful one. Troy, back to you.
Sean, something else I thought was interesting was that kind of like there was like a Donald Trump merch mall down 95th Avenue. Did you see that at all? I couldn't believe how many kiosks were set up with T-shirts and baubles and all kinds of things.
Yeah. No, a lot of merchandise out here for folks. We saw folks going up and down in carts, selling their merchandise to the long line of folks. An unfortunate part for some was right about an hour ago, we saw a representative here outside of Desert Diamond Arena really go to the long line of folks and say, you have to disperse. There was still a very lengthy line of people waiting to get inside. So we believe that was, unfortunately, you might have a ticket, but you're not going to get in. I think it just shows the lengthy lines that were out here today.
Yeah, and the amount of people they were able to pack in here. Sean, thank you very much. Again, another big storyline coming out of today, politics here in Arizona. It's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a member of maybe the most storied Democratic political family in our country's history, drops out of the race as an independent candidate and throws his support behind Donald Trump. Jade Cunningham joining us now with that story. Jade, the implications here.
Hey, good evening, Troy. Yeah, you know, his family tweeting out shortly after the announcement today, saying that the news of it's a betrayal of the values our father and family hold most dear. They are not happy about what transpired today. That was posted by his sister, Carrie Kennedy. So they are not happy with what happened. There was a lot of speculation about what this big announcement would be from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Today, though, he formally announced that he is not terminating his campaign. He is suspending it in battleground states like Arizona. He says he will now work to remove his name from the ballot in those key states and encourages voters there to support former President Donald Trump. Now, in states, though, where his name will remain on the ballot, he is hopeful voters will vote for him. Today's speech lasted for about 45 minutes or so. The room was full of media, a few supporters, as well as his campaign team. I actually spoke with a supporter of his after the announcement was made, and she tells me she's feeling just a wave of emotions right now, but supports Kennedy's decision.
You know, it's disappointing. I've got Kennedy 24 signs. I've got a 10-year-old at home that, you know, is going to be crushed by this news. But at the end of the day, you know, I think we're all fighting for the same thing. You know, I've got 3 young boys, my wife and I, and so we're very invested in making sure that we're leaving a legacy for them, not just in our own household, but as a country. And you know, I trust whatever path Bobby sees in getting us there.
And she tells me now she is trying to figure out how she is going to vote in the upcoming election. Kennedy also saying that he had spoken with former President Donald Trump a few times in the past few weeks and was ultimately asked to join his administration, calling it a unity party. And we're going to have much more of that coming up tonight at 5. But first, we are going to send things back over to Glendale to check back in with Troy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting, Jay, to see what kind of an impact that this has on the campaign, especially in states like Arizona, where if you believe the polls, we're at a razor-thin margin. Could go either way. So, Jay, thank you. Nice coverage on that. Okay, Tram, when you come to these events, you run into some odd people sometimes. One person I ran into, let's put it this way, people you don't expect. I don't want to call people odd. The mobster Sammy the Bull Gravano. You've heard of him. He was a mafia hitman. He was convicted. He was sent out here in the witness protection program. Well, he's a big Donald Trump fan. Ran into him out here, and he had some interesting things to say and a really interesting T-shirt. So that's coming up at 4:30.
All right, that's quite the tease there, Troy. We appreciate it. Great job out there. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of minutes. Well, joining me right now, 12 News political insider Bram Resnick. Bram, all right, so Trump here in the Valley. Yesterday, he was down at the border. Then, interestingly enough, he jets off to Las Vegas to speak to try to woo some more voters. And then he's back in here, flying in at about 2:30 for, you know, at that time, an hour and a half away from his big speech at Desert Diamond Arena, obviously trying to counteract the momentum that the Dems have been making this past week at the DNC. What do you make of all of this?
Donald Trump has now figured out he's in a fight against Kamala Harris. It was just a month ago that Joe Biden was still running for president, and then he wasn't. Kamala Harris in the past month has fired up the Democratic base. Polls indicate in many of the battleground states, including Arizona's, it is a toss-up. Donald Trump has clearly gotten the memo. He went back at the governor of Georgia, whom he insulted about a month or two ago, and on his Truth Social page wrote this effusive, not an apology, but just, I think the language is sucking up to the governor of Georgia, because he needs to win Georgia if he's going to win the White House.
Yeah, there's been a couple of about faces throughout this entire campaign, right? All right, let's talk about RFK Jr. He's here in the Valley. He made his big announcement. And the fact that he's suspending his campaign, I thought it was interesting, not ending it, technically, suspending it. However, only withdrawing his name on battleground states, Arizona in particular. Last night, he pulled his name off of Arizona's ballot. So what do you make of this? Why not just end it?
I'm not sure what to make of this. I'm not sure Bobby Kennedy knows exactly what to make of this because, yes, he's still got one foot in the race. We expect him to speak today in Glendale at the former President Donald Trump's rally. There has been no offer or at least acceptance of any kind of cabinet job if it comes to that. So it's hard to know what Bobby Kennedy gets out of this. He did say he expects Donald Trump to push Bobby Kennedy's agenda of dealing with chronic disease, childhood illness, often caused by processed foods. According to Bobby Kennedy, he wants Donald Trump to push that agenda to save lives. So there are still a lot of unanswered questions. What we can say about the polling numbers is that, in general, Bobby Kennedy was polling at about 3%. Maybe 3% here in Arizona.
Right.
It's unclear, though, since Kamala Harris's entrance into the race, how that is affected. It was generally believed, though, that Bobby Kennedy would be pulling from Donald Trump voters.
Obviously, right now, we're giving you another look as we are here in studio, and that look is from the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale. Kari Lake, who's running for Senate, she's up speaking right now before former President Donald Trump takes the stage. What do you make of, her run? And she's at the top of the list of candidates who are speaking at this big rally.
She is at the top of the list. I'll say one thing about the list of candidates. It does remind us that Republicans are on a three-cycle losing streak. You see no state senators, U.S. senators, a former governor, two-term governor, Doug Ducey, is not there for some reason. Republicans, and as we know, Donald Trump lost here in 2020. So not exactly a star-studded lineup. Kari Lake, it appears she's not getting the national support that she needs, the money she needs to win a U.S. Senate race. Keep this date in mind, October 9th, there is going to be a debate between Republican Kari Lake and Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego, a U.S. Senate debate. That will be a big one. Also, since we're talking about debates, let's look ahead to the presidential side.
Yeah.
September 10th, the first debate.
2.5 weeks away.
Not very long.
Yeah.
2.5 weeks is a lifetime, though.
It is, as is, come November when people will hit the polls. But, this debate, it's the first, maybe the only?
I don't think it's going to be the only between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I don't think it's going to be the only. I believe another network, maybe even NBC, is negotiating for a second one. I believe there will be a second one. A lot depends on what happens in the first one. Right? And this is going to be interesting because if you remember that fateful debate June 27th between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, if the sound had been turned down on Joe Biden that night and you'd only been listening to Donald Trump's responses, viewers might have come away with a very different impression of Donald Trump from that debate than they did. As it was, they were focused on Joe Biden. Rightly so. It was the only place to look as all that was unfolding. But Donald Trump had a pretty rough night that night. And Kamala Harris, I think as she demonstrated in her acceptance speech last night, still has much of the prosecutor in her and can prosecute a case against Donald Trump in a debate format.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of Trump, we'll be hearing from him in just a couple of minutes. Bram, we thank you always for your insight.